muting everything, and I'm just here for moral support, B.
Thank you.
All right, we should have some people starting to roll in now. As everybody comes in, you'll see these Zoom session protocols on the screen. Big thing to remember is that everybody will be muted upon entry, but you do have the chat feature available, so make sure you use the chat to enter any questions and things you might have, and we'll be getting started in about 4 minutes. And please feel free, jump in the chat and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, and what your role is. And you'll see that our presenter has tucked in there. If you could, let us know where you're at expertise-wise with Scratch, and that'll help B customize the session for you.
I will be back in just a minute.
Oh, I could get that for you, B.
Okay, am I muted? Am I muted?
Okay, we should be getting started here in just a couple minutes. On your screen is the Zoom session protocols. Big thing to remember is that everybody will be muted here throughout, but you do have the chat feature open to you. So please use that chat to ask any questions. And as we're getting ready to get started, if you would use the chat to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, and also add in there your experience with Scratch. Have you used it before? Would you say you're a pro, beginner, novice? Where do you think you are as far as your Scratch expertise? Maybe somewhere in the middle. Okay, and we have hit 7 p.m. on the dot. So just for anybody that might have missed it as we were coming in, remember to use the chat for any questions and things that you may have throughout. And also, if you've not already, please let us know your experience level, your expertise level with Scratch, beginning, intermediate, or expert. And again, use the chat throughout, and I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it over to B, your awesome presenter that is going to give us some hands-on goodness with, I'm assuming, Scratch. B, you want to take it away?
Hi, thank you, Patrick. That was nice to get started with you in the room. It's nice to see you. So I am B. Liederman. I am currently not working at any school division, but I'm doing work from home, and this is the kind of work I'm doing. And today I'm going to walk you through creating something in Scratch that then you're going to make into your own thing. And we're going to use a framework called the Follow, Tinker, Make, Share framework. That is something that I've developed with my husband and some friends. And it really lends itself to getting everybody started without any fear of, sometimes the blank page is very intimidating. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with Scratch. And excuse me while I share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so can everybody see my screen? And we're going to be in Scratch, and we're going to start with a new project. And this is a hands-on session. So I'm going to make something, and I would like for all of you to just follow along. I will give you time to follow along as I go. And what I'm going to do is I'm starting with just my default cat, and I don't want the cat on the screen, so I'm just going to get rid of the cat altogether. And I'm going to add a new sprite, and the sprite that I like to use is just the ball. And I'm going to also add, before we get started, I'm going to add an extra set of blocks that are not in Scratch by the default. And I'm going to do that. Let me do that again so you guys can see it. At the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, there's a blue button. And when you click on it, you see all these additional blocks that you can use. And what I'm going to select is the pen. So now I get these green pen blocks that are at the bottom of my choices. If you have never used Scratch, on the left-hand side of the screen, you have color-coded blocks that are color-coded by function. And so you can scroll all the way to the top and you have the blue ones, or you can just click on the different colors on the side, and that's a great way to navigate. In this middle section, we're going to build our code, and over on this side, we're going to actually see what happens. So right here, you see that I have a ball and I have no code right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle, and we're all going to start with this. I'm going to use a loop, and there are 360 degrees in a circle. So I'm going to repeat this process 360 degrees, and I'm going to move, and I'm going to move 1 degree and 1 step. So I pull these out, and you can see that if you have not used Scratch before, you attach the blocks, they snap together like Lego pieces. If you move them from the top, then they move together. If you pull from the bottom, they separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these numbers. Every time there's an oval in one of these that's blank like this, you can type your own number. So you can adjust your code as you go without knowing any syntax or having to worry about any errors. So here's my circle, but I need to make my circle visible. And this is one of the great things about Scratch. And it's something that Scratch specifically took from the original work of Seymour Papert, making what you're doing very visible by using a pen. And that's why I like to start Scratch with the pen. So I'm going to go to the pen. At the beginning, I'm going to erase everything. And then I'm going to put the pen down. And then I'm going to just get this thing to start. And all I have to do is I'm going to add a flag at the top. When I click the green flag, my ball is going to move around the screen and make a circle. And I'm going to stop right here and give everybody a chance to create this bit of code. And I'm going to see if there's anything happening in the chat. If you have questions, if you get stuck, please make sure you ask. I'm assuming Karen
Hey,
is
B,
taking...
it's Karen Richardson.
Yes.
So can they do this on the iPad app as well, or you're working on a desktop? I normally do Scratch on a desktop. Does can they do what you're doing right now if they have Scratch? Or Angela Franklin from WHRO's here was talking about Scratch Junior. Can we use that as well? What are the options for doing this?
This is specifically for Scratch. You can navigate to the Scratch website on the iPad and it should work. It's not as easy as when you're using a desktop computer or a laptop computer, but it works. But there's no app for Scratch. There's Scratch Junior, and what we're using is actually Scratch, and you can navigate to the website and use it there.
Cool, thanks.
So I want to make this a little more interactive. It's a little unnerving that I cannot see the chat at the moment. So Karen will monitor the chat for me. So I'm going to do one more thing here. Is everybody getting to this, or is anybody getting lost? Do you need help? Do you need me to show you how to do anything again? This is supposed to be hands-on computing. Everybody's supposed to be doing it with me. So ask questions.
At least for right now, B, I do not see any SOS messages or anything in the chat. So I think everybody is doing well, and Farah has just chimed in that she is good.
Okay, so we have drawn a circle. I'm going to do one more thing just because for what we're going to do next, this little ball might get a little intrusive. And what I'm going to do is just hide it. And to hide it, all I do is under the stage where I have this hide and show button right here, I'm just going to hide it. The ball is still there. I didn't delete it. It still exists and the code still exists. But the question for you guys is, at this point, you have followed my instructions. Everybody has these 6 blocks of code that draw a circle. So the problem is that if I click it again, you'll see how it moves so slowly. I mean, this is having to go through 360 repetitions of the same code. So what can we do to speed up the code without changing the shape that we're making? So if you have any ideas, just type it in the chat. If I'm having to run this 360 times, how can I speed this up? What kinds of changes do you think you can make? And by the way, as I'm doing this, I'm modeling what I've done with students in the past. So you ask questions and you guide them to think through what they're doing.
We have 2 responses in the chat. One says add more steps, and a second says variables.
Variables. Okay, variables gets a little complicated for now. I don't want to get into variables quite yet. And by the way, I do have to say, this is the first half of a 2-part session. So you're going to get a lot of stuff now, but if you come back to the second half of the session on Sunday, then you'll get the second half of everything we're doing and a little bit more of the theory of how to go about planning your own follow, tinker, play, or make, share projects. So somebody said more steps. I'm going to try that, and all I'm going to do is type a number 2 right here. And if I click this, watch what happens. So now what has happened is my circle has gotten bigger, but it didn't necessarily get any smaller. And because it ran off the screen, then I got a kind of a wonky circle. So what I'm going to do is, I'm assuming other people have thought this, but they just didn't type it in the chat. I can reduce the number of steps that the number of repetitions if I change the number of degrees that we turn. So if I change this to 180 degrees, which is half of 360, and I duplicate the number of degrees that we turn, when I click this, I get the exact same circle slightly faster. So what do you think we can do to speed it up even more? What would you do? Now that I did the first step, go ahead and do one more step and speed it up just a little bit more. Is anybody getting any different results? Anybody have any questions? By the way, Karen, I've been hitting the admit button in the waiting room. So I'm going to change a number just randomly. I'm going to change this to another number of repetitions. If I change this number to 120 repetitions, what do I have to change the number of degrees to in order to still get a full circle? And are you guys starting to see the relationship between the number of repetitions and the number of degrees that you turn? So I'm going to change this to 3 degrees. And you can see that when I click this, we're getting a circle. And because I didn't change the number of steps, my circle is getting smaller and smaller. So I have to, if I want the circle to remain the same size, then I also have to change the number of steps that we take. So I'm going to issue a challenge. And I hope everybody's actually doing this with me because this is supposed to be hands-on. What I'm going to do right now is say, continue doing these changes and see what patterns you see and how far can you reduce the number of repetitions and increase the number of degrees that you turn until what you see is no longer a circle. And I'm going to do one more thing. If you would like to share your project and share what you're seeing on your screen with us, you can, there's an orange button at the top. If you're logged into Scratch and your account is not a brand new account and it's verified, you can share your project. And once you share your project, you can copy and paste the link into the chat and we can share and look at each other's projects. And this part will be important on Sunday because at the end of the session, I'll issue a challenge. I'll show you some sample projects and everybody gets the chance to play with what they learned today between now and Sunday. If you have questions, I would love to help you out. Just get in touch via Twitter or email or any way that you would like to get in touch with me. I'm very accessible. So does anybody have any ideas? Has anybody done anything that has already turned into something that is not a circle? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and hopefully I can see some of you. Or at least see who's here. Nice. So does anybody want to share your project? Like put it in the chat. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Okay, so Ken says when you get to just 60 repetitions with 6 degrees, you start seeing a pretty choppy circle. So what if you go even smaller than 60 repetitions? What if you go really small? Because now that you've created this first stack of code, you start noticing that it's pretty easy to realize what the relationship is between the number of repetitions. I am muted? Was I muted all this time? No. It's okay, Karen.
We were such a small group. I was trying to unmute people. Christine said, yeah, we've muted everybody, but we're such a small group. I don't have a problem. I don't know how Patrick feels about it, but that would mean I knew how to do that. So maybe Patrick does.
It looks like everybody should now have the option to unmute themselves. It's checked. So if people want to
if anybody would like to unmute themselves and share what they've done, tell us a little bit. Exactly. So the fewer repeats that you have and the bigger the steps are, then you start seeing segments. So you start seeing polygons, right? So now that somebody has openly said this in the chat, my challenge to you is draw not a circle, but see if you can draw a hexagon. How many repetitions are you going to have and how many degrees are you going to have to turn? So the challenge is draw a hexagon. I'm going to share my screen again. And I'm going to actually not draw a hexagon, I'm going to draw a pentagon. And remember, when you're doing this, you have to change the number of steps that you walk. You can also, now that you know how to do this, and as you've been playing with this, even if you break your code, you can always go back to what you have because you've been using it for a while and we all created the same thing to start with. So even if you mess it up, you know how to get to this point. And that's the whole purpose of starting with follow. Everybody follows the same instructions and gets to the same place. And if you mess up, you can always undo and go back to what you had. So if I were to mess this up completely, then I could say, okay, when I started, this looked like this, and I can return to that original state. I can also just duplicate the code like this, right click, save one, just take the flag off so it's not running, play with this one. If I mess up this one, I just toss it back in the drawer and go back to this one and play with it again. So I'm going to add one more thing to this. I'm going to always start, I'm going to take this blue block and I'm always going to start at the origin. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to always start pointing at direction 90 degrees. If you don't know where 90 degrees is, remember you can always change whatever's in a white oval. So if I click right here, I can change the direction in which it starts. So I'm going to start it right there. So now I have this pentagon. And now I want to show you something. You can play around with what this looks like. I can change the color that my pen has, so I can make it red. And if you look at the pen blocks that you have right here, you notice that you can treat your pen color like a variable. So I can change my pen color as I go, and I can change it by any number of colors. So I can make all the different colors, all different sides of the pentagon a different color by changing where I start and by how much I change it. Is everybody following? Is everybody doing okay? Does anybody need to show something else or answer any questions? Does anybody want to show what they've done? Did everybody manage to draw a pentagon? I wish we could post, this is the one thing I really wish we could do with Zoom. I wish we could paste screenshots into the chat. And then everybody would just be sharing what they've made. All right, so I'm going to add one more thing to this particular project. Oh, I left the chat open and now I can see the chat even when I'm sharing my screen. This is awesome. I've always used voice instead, but this is excellent. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pentagon. I'm going to get rid of this color change. I'm going to set the color to just one color right here. And I'm going to add another set of repetitions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a spirograph. So I'm going to take another loop that repeats. And I'm going to rotate what I have right now. So I'm going to rotate. So 360 divided by 12, I'm going to do 12 repetitions, and I'm going to do, hang on, I'm not going to do 12. I'm going to actually stay with 10, and I'm going to do 36 degrees. And I'm going to put this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is something that's important to know how to do. I'm going to talk through this code. And when you're working with students, it's important to walk the kids through the process of talking through their code so that they understand what's happening when they have a mistake and they can't figure it out. So I'm going to set my pen color to blue. I'm going to point in this direction, go to the origin, clear the board, put the pen down, and then I'm going to do this 10 times. Inside of that, I'm going to draw a pentagon, and I'm going to turn 36 degrees, draw another pentagon, turn 36 degrees, draw a pentagon, and I'm going to repeat that 10 times. Oh, that's excellent. Yes, they can share their project on Discord. So I'm going to click the green flag, and what you're going to see is a completely new design. Isn't that fun? So now you can play around with this design, right? You can make it into something else. What if instead of doing 10 repetitions of 36 degrees, if I do 6 repetitions of 60 degrees? How does that change my design? It changes it, right? What if I change the inside, and now I can play with the inside and the outside. So on the inside now, I had made it a pentagon, but now I'm going to go and make it a hexagon. So I'm going to do hexagon on the inside, hexagon on the outside, and see what happens. So you can see how you can start playing with the numbers and changing the designs that you get. But the important thing is everybody can get to at least this point, and then from here you change it any way you want to. So you followed my instructions, and it's not just you did this and we're all done. This is just the beginning, and it's very common that you see, oh, Karen is sharing hers. I'm going to go to hers. It's very common in school that when you do a project or you start a project and you're running out of time, you say, okay, we're all going to do this. We're going to get to this point, and all the projects look the same. If you follow this process, or you have the kids follow, then you walk them through tinkering, and then you send them out to do something on their own using what they have learned and anything else that they want to bring into the project, then that's where you can see kids personalizing their projects to fit their abilities and their preferences. And then what we're going to do when we come back on Sunday, I really do invite you to come back on Sunday and share what you do. We're going to do the sharing portion of this, which is very important because it's very important to learn from one another and to learn what we discovered. And when you do that in a classroom, you create a community that is used to helping each other and learning together. So I want to, we only have 6 minutes. Oh my gosh, these things fly by. I'm actually going to share Karen's project. I'm going to click on this. Oh, let's click the green flag. Look at what Karen did. That is pretty cool. And her choice was not to hide the yellow ball, so it's in the middle, and now it becomes part of the design, which is another personalization that she has chosen to do. So
it was really just lazy code, B. Sorry, but thanks for giving me credit for that. It does look kind of cool, doesn't it?
it is cool. I mean, you might think it's lazy code, but somebody who has never done something like this, it's pretty cool that you are able to do this so quickly and so easily, because the beauty about Scratch is that it has very low entry point. Everybody can do Scratch, but you can make it as complex and crazy advanced as you want because it has very high ceiling. And at the same time, it has very wide walls. So I can focus to, somebody had mentioned variables at the beginning of the session. You can focus to go into the math part and make it really mathy and serious and use variables, and you can graph all sorts of crazy functions and make them look very artistic. Or you can go with the color choices and the color changes and change the background and make it really into something that's art, which is, I don't know enough math to make it very mathy. So my choice is always to make it very artsy. So it's not lazy. Everybody works at their level, and it's the beauty of Scratch. So since I did say I was going to issue a challenge, I want to show you a project that I did using this kind of coding, and I will share it in the Discord channel. So I have this project, and I'm going to go full screen. And when I click the flag here, you can recognize some of the patterns. I have a circle, and then I have repeating patterns that draw other circles. And then we're seeing some of these rosettes that we learned how to create today. So the challenge is, take a few minutes. You saw that making code with this method and drawing with Scratch is very easy. So my challenge is, I'm going to stop sharing so I can talk to you guys. So my challenge is, take what you learned today and make something of your own. Playing around with what you have. You can repeat it multiple times. You can add sound. You can change the background. You can add more patterns. You can change the caliber of the pen and make the lines thicker or thinner. If you know how to add variables, and make something that looks or sounds or progresses through the animation in a way that is mesmerizing, and bring that back and showcase it. And we'll talk about the sharing portion of this. Yes, getting unstuck follows something like this. So bring it back on Sunday, and we have just 2 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can ask any questions. I'm going to put my email address if anybody wants to get in touch. It's in the chat, or you can follow me on Twitter. I put my Twitter handle in the PLN document. But on Sunday, we will go a little bit more into the theory behind the follow, tinker, make, share framework that we're working with and that we've used to teach all sorts of things from Scratch to video editing, and how to get started, how to think of a follow project that your students can follow and then personalize and continue to grow with. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody else want to share their projects and show what they've made?
Farah did put her link in the chat room, along with the link to what looks like a pretty cool Zoom background, Farah. Sorry. Anyway,
oh, I see it.
But
I
hers
see
is
it.
hers is cool because it changes colors.
Yes, I'm going to go to it right now. I'm in it at the moment. I'm making it full screen, and now I need to go back to Zoom and share
That's cool.
screen. All right, let's see this one. Oh, you have the pencil. So I'm going to show you a trick. Before we go, this is a very cool trick. If you want your pencil to draw with the tip and not with the middle, if you go to the costume, I hope Farah's still watching. I'm going to take this.
Yeah, she's here, and she says this was a simple machine project for third grade.
Look what I'm doing. I'm changing. There's a dot in the middle of your screen when you're in edit mode for your sprites. If you put the pencil, whatever is on that dot, that's where the line comes from. So now that I've changed it, now the line is actually coming from the tip.
That's so cool.
If you didn't know that about Scratch, now you've learned something new.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, you're very welcome, Mano. It's very nice to see you. So I hope you guys will come back on Sunday. On Sunday, we will do some more Scratch stuff. I hope you guys will share your projects. And we'll talk more about the theory behind this. I don't know what the protocol is for ending a Zoom conference presentation, but thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you, B. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay,
And thank you very much.
see you later.